November is Scorpio, also known as the sign of the serpent. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
Snakes. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, episode 73, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. And don't forget, you guys can get a hold of us at brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. That is the email address to talk to us. And we have a brand new Twitter account. We are Tweet Noobs, but we have a Twitter account. It is at Snake Bros with no vowels, so SNKBRS. That's the handle, at Snake Bros with no vowels. So you can get on there.
Noobs.
Hashtag Twitter Noobs. So you can get on there and get involved. We're going to be tweeting, or the watcher will be paying attention to the feed and tweeting during the show, talking about what we're talking about. So you guys can post questions, actually, like while we're doing the show, and the watcher can then feed them into the podcast feed where we're talking to him, and we can address the questions like right then. So you guys could potentially get your questions totally not answered, right at at the time we're recording the podcast. So if he tells you that we're talking about pyramids, and you can ask us like, don't you know that they build pyramids with ramps? And we can be like, we don't know that, and nobody else does either. So yeah, come get on our Twitter feed at Snake Bros with no vowels. And I think that's about it.
So we don't have enough bandwidth to do live streaming.
Not yet. That's right. We're still waiting for like space internet.
That's right. So the best we can do right now is just to be tweeting about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then if we have followers or whatever, or you have questions, or it's just a way to interact. Like once a week while we're in here in studio, we can, through the watcher, be interacting with people. Whether or not it's related to our show, since you guys can't hear it at the time, it doesn't really matter. If there's something cool that we want to address, we can talk about it.
That's totally true. And also, it's a good place. We will post, we'll post links to each new show as they come out in the feed, and then that's a good way for you guys to share the shows with your followers if you're on Twitter and you have people that follow you or pay attention to what you say. So that's like, we're trying to get in. We don't use social media at all, and we're trying to get in on this because it is a good way it's a good way to give people a way to spread the show around to other people. So anyone who uses Twitter, follow us, and then like help us out by retweeting our tweets about the show, basically. So
the main reason we're using it is for our own personal gain. So just be straight up about
That's right. Like you can say whatever you want in there, but really what we're doing is trying to get better. We're trying to make our podcast better. We don't care what you say. It's all about us. Also, we are joined, as always, by our good friend and longhead, Mr. Brett England, the Watcher, from his space station in outer space. How you doing out there, buddy? You watching the feed? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm working on that space internet too. Until then, we'll just stick to the tweetering. It's Nick Bros and
it's like snack bars, Snake Bros.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. All right. As always, we have space weather news. Did an alien light sail visit the solar system? It sounds like a tabloid headline, but in this case, it could be real. Mainstream researchers from the Harvard Center for Astrophysics have made the case that interstellar asteroid Oumuamua could in fact be an alien light sail. Now, this is the big asteroid that was the long and narrow. Remember, it was the long, narrow one. It was like, and it came from, like, it was extrasolar, came from somewhere else, not the solar system, went around the sun once and then went back out, never to return. Do you remember this?
Mm-mm.
And it was like this long, narrow thing. They always depicted it as being this big cigar shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was spinning all weird. Okay, so that's what this is. Oumuamua, I think I'm saying it right. So the original research was posted on October 31st on the moderated preprint server arcxiv.org. The story of Oumuamua begins in October 2017 when it was discovered by Robert Warwick using the Pan-STARRS telescope atop Hawaii's Haleakala. Can't even say. It's something like that. The volcano that's exploding right now. No, it's not. Astronomers quickly realized that Oumuamua was something special. The object was hurtling through the solar system on an unbound hyperbolic orbit. It came from the stars. Dramatic changes in the object's brightness suggested that it was tumbling and asymmetric, thin and wide like a cigar or perhaps a pancake. There's a picture of one of the depictions. On its way out of the solar system, something unexpected happened. Oumuamua accelerated as if jets of gas were pushing it forward. Astronomers who initially thought Oumuamua was an asteroid now turned their attention to the comet hypothesis. Comets naturally develop jets after close approaches to the sun, and such jets could explain the behavior of this object. Just one problem. Despite its close solar approach of only 0.25 AU, which is inside the orbit of Mercury, Oumuamua shows no sign of any cometary activity, no comet tail, nor gas emission or absorption lines, points out the Harvard researchers Shmuel Bailey and Abraham Loeb. Moreover, if outgassing was responsible for the acceleration, then the associated torques would have driven a rapid evolution in Oumuamua's spin incompatible with observations. So if it's not an asteroid, and it's not a comet, what could it be? Loeb, who is the chair of the astronomy department at Harvard University and also chairs the advisory board for the Breakthrough Starshot Light Sail project, realized that the acceleration profile was the key. The non-gravitational acceleration of Oumuamua scaled with distance from the sun r as r squared, just like a light sail would behave. Modeling Oumuamua as a thin object pushed by solar radiation pressure, Bailey and Loeb found that it would fit the observations if it were a sheet of material 0.3 millimeters to 0.9 millimeter in thickness with a mass surface density of approximately 0.1 grams per square centimeter. Although extremely thin, such an object would survive an interstellar travel over galactic distances of about 5 kiloparsecs, withstanding collisions with gas and dust grains as well as stresses from rotation and tidal forces, they wrote. The researchers are now calling for more observations to look for Oumuamua-like visitors to the solar system. A survey for light sails as techno-signatures in the solar system is warranted, irrespective of whether Oumuamua is one of them, they conclude. Although technical, Bailey and Loeb's paper is well written and unusually readable for non-specialists, so you should check it out. That is a fantastic Space Weather News article. I mean, we were talking about light sails in the past couple of episodes, about how... there are these science fiction stories where they have these enormous light sails and they have the races, and like if the guy's in front of you, you try to move your light sail to where you're casting a shadow on his and it makes ripples pass and everything.
Sun surfing.
Yeah, sun surfing. It tears up his sail and you win.
So this thing, when they say a light sail, are they talking about a natural light sail? Like
no, they're actually suggesting that it may be an alien object.
Okay. I wasn't sure. If
they're saying, look, it had this unaccounted for acceleration. Now if they knew about the elastic universe hypothesis, they might think that maybe it was riding a wave, or something. But or electric universe, maybe it's a metallic shard and it's getting caught up in the.
Yeah, it's designed to.
To ride the
ride
arc.
plasma arcs.
Yeah, but they're just saying like, look, there's this unexplained acceleration and it has zero evidence of any type of cometary signature, and normally they would explain those accelerations from a comet as developing interior heat and then jets, right, that would just push it, but it doesn't have any cometary signatures at all. So they're suggesting. So
did it? I can't remember if they were saying this. Did it accelerate its spin or make it spin erratic or anything, or did it sort of maintain?
Well, yeah, I mean it already had a crazy spin, a three axis spin. But no, it accelerated away from the sun.
That's weird, right?
Yeah.
If it was spinning and there was a jet just coming out of it randomly, it'd just make it spin faster.
Yeah. And there's actually a little animation on spaceweather.com that shows that, where they're saying like, this is what it would actually look like. And they show these little jets coming out of it and then making it, roll faster. Yeah. But that's not what happened. It like took off away from the sun. And the acceleration was exactly what you would expect if it was light pressure doing it, is what they were saying.
That's cool.
Or at least very close. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So that's one of the best space weather news stories we've had in a while right there. But there is the regular, because that wasn't really space weather, but there is the regular Aurora update. Next geomagnetic storm, another large hole in the sun's atmosphere, is turning towards Earth, spewing a stream of solar wind that should reach our planet on November 10th or 11th. A similar stream sparked a G2 class geomagnetic storm, and Aurora is visible from the USA on November 4th and 5th. So. All right, what do you got?
All right.
See if you can beat my alien light sail story there.
California hit by 39 quakes in 24 hours as scientists warn.
But there's no problem. Everything's okay.
That's right. As scientists warn of movement along the San Andreas Fault. So I was just...
Wow.
I pulled this one up first because maybe it has something to do with, space weather news.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is on Zero Hedge by Tyler Durden.
Of course.
It's a pretty long article, but basically it's just talking about how the activity has picked up big time in this area in California. And he quotes from this one article that basically blew his mind. And I thought, people have been saying this forever. The big one may be overdue to hit California, but scientists near LA have found a new risk for the area during a major earthquake. They claim that if a major tremor hits the area, it could plunge large parts of California into the sea almost instantly.
Wow.
The discovery was made after studying the Newport-Inglewood Fault, which has long been believed to be one of Southern California's danger zones. And he says, when I first read that, I was absolutely stunned. But according to Cal State Fullerton professor Matt Kirby, there is a very strong possibility that this could actually happen someday.
Man.
And then he quotes again, Cal State Fullerton professor Matt Kirby, who worked with the Leaper on the study, said the sinking would occur quickly and likely result in part of California being covered by the sea. It's something that would happen relatively instantaneously, Professor Kirby said. Probably today, if it happened, you would see seawater rushing in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because relatively instantaneously to a uniformitarian could mean anywhere between 1 week and a million years.
Yeah. But then there was this other thing, dude. There's this in this article. He's quoting from a bunch of different stories just about all this crazy activity that's going on in that area. It is the beginning of the San Andreas Fault, where experts fear the big one could happen. But a small bubbling pool of mud that stinks of rotten eggs near the Salton Sea is causing concern. Dubbed the slow one, experts studying the phenomenon say it is similar to a moving sinkhole and is speeding up, destroying everything in its path.
Wow.
So there's this just this sinkhole of mud that's starting to move. It's moving at what does it say, 60 feet a day?
Is it expanding or moving?
It's moving.
Wow, that's weird. That is crazy.
The fact that our planet is entering a time of unprecedented seismic activity has been a major theme. Unprecedented. Come on, man. I think Archer had sent us a story about the earthquakes that went off for 2 million years or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, it has been a major theme in my work for a very long time, and I'm particularly concerned about the West Coast. Just a few weeks ago, there was some unusual shaking farther north along the Cascadia subduction zone, and I anticipate that the shaking of coastal areas will continue to intensify until things finally break loose.
Wow.
And the truth is that we can see signs of impending change all around us. Down in Southern California, a moving sinkhole is now traveling up to 60 feet a day, and it is destroying everything in its path.
Wow. 60 feet a day. I did not know sinkholes could walk.
Yeah. There's this thing, it's just and it's full of rotten egg smelling mud. There's a picture of it.
Man. That's video game shit right there.
Yeah.
Sinkholes that travel around on the ground and you have to run away from them. And if you can't, you die.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So here's a good one. If extraterrestrial intelligence exists somewhere in our galaxy, a new MIT study proposes that laser technology on Earth could, in principle, be fashioned into something of a planetary porch light, a beacon strong enough to attract attention from as far as 20,000 light years away.
Yeah.
I love this idea.
Right.
Turn on the porch light so that...
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Well, what's the deal?
Well, I mean...
You don't want to...
The woods are full of monsters,
big monsters to notice us out here. Yeah.
It's the Wild West out there. It's wild space, and you just turn on a bright light and be like, "Here we are," and it's it's the same kind of thing as you don't do that when you're in the middle of the wilderness at night. You don't make a lot of noise to attract the big predators. You just don't. You kind of bury yourself under leaves and sleep.
But hold on. Okay. So
all right.
So the idea is that basically they're talking about building a high-powered 1 to 2 megawatt laser and then focusing it through a massive 30 to 45 meter telescope aimed out into space.
That's cool. But dumb.
And the combination would produce a beam of infrared radiation strong enough to stand out from the sun's energy. So like in the story, they're just talking about how, you know, that they can use this light even to possibly send messages like, you know, so many bits or whatever per second or something. But I just thought it was cool because thinking back to, you know, before we had all of this amazing communications technology, like just the simple light signal, you know, like,
like
first it was smoke signals.
Click, 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 click.
Yeah.
Smoke signals.
First it was smoke signals back in the butt flapper days. But then, you know, the light signals of just like even thinking about beacons on top of walls, like when something, say some army is coming, they light this beacon, and that can be seen from this other place, and they light a beacon and it can be seen. And so there's all this sort of rudimentary communication that can happen just with the simple light source. So I think it's a cool idea because basically if we turn on a light bright enough, because right now when we look into these distant, even close stars and star systems,
the stars are too bright.
They're too bright, and we only see the planets when they move in front of the star.
Right.
So it would be really cool to be looking out there and just see like this light come on, bing, you know, just like, what is that? And so it would, whether or not we would think, oh, this is alien technology, we would pay more attention to it.
Right.
We would start focusing more stuff out there to see what was going on. And that's exactly the idea, is that like we turn something on and somebody just, you know, any like an astronomer that is sort of like at a basic level of astronomy with telescopes, you know, just optical telescopes and stuff, could see it. And that would just cause their whole civilization to start focusing more.
Or the Cepha homeworld sees it and they come to kill us all.
They turn on the light again. Dang it.
Again, there was that story that I remember talking about where they, you know, where SETI finally gets a signal back, and the guy gets the signal and like he translates it because it's in a basic code that he understands, a binary code, and he translates it, and it's very short, and all it says is "be quiet or they will hear you."
Oh God.
Because we've been transmitting radio signals for like 100 years, you know, and it's just like this one alien race took the chance to tell us to be quiet. You know, and everyone else is silent because they know that if you're not, or they either weren't silent and got wiped out, or they're silent and hiding. And this one alien race was like, shh.
You live in this forest, and there's this whole group of people that you know that live in the forest, and each person has their little bunkers and their little holes in the trees and stuff. And then these new people come in. And they're making
like, hello.
They're making noise. And it's like you're sitting in there and you're like, oh my God, they're about to get eaten. But you just like run out there and just like, shh, don't. Yeah. That's freaky.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Be quiet or they will hear you. Yeah. Don't turn that light on. Unless it can also be turned into a powerful laser beam that can knock them out. Yeah, that's right.
That's what would happen. We'd turn it on and they'd be like, they're trying to kill us.
Or they think we're having some massive war. Yeah. All right. New discovery throws light on mystery of pyramids construction. Egyptologists stumble across ramp that helps explain how huge blocks of stone were hauled into place. The mystery of how exactly the pyramids have been built have come a step closer to being unraveled after a team of archaeologists made a chance discovery in an ancient Egyptian quarry. Scientists researching ancient inscriptions happened upon a ramp with stairways and a series of what they believe to be post holes, which suggests that the job of hauling into place the huge blocks of stone used to build the monuments may have been completed more quickly than previously thought. While the theory that ancient Egyptians used ramps to move the stones has already been put forward, the structure found by the Anglo-French team, which dated from about the period that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built, is significantly steeper than was previously supposed possible. They believe the inclusion of the steps in the post holes either on either side of a rampway suggests the builders were able to haul from both directions rather than simply dragging a block behind them. The team believes those below the block would have used the post to create a pulley system, while those above it pulled simultaneously. Now, the problem with the pulley system is that, as we all know, they don't think that they had the wheel.
Yeah. And also, it doesn't matter how many turns you put on this pulley system to make it a lighter load for you to pull that rope.
Yeah.
It's still the rope
Right.
cannot pull, or the post in the post hole cannot hold
that giant
this stone.
That's right.
No matter where you anchor it, unless
That's right.
you anchor it to another giant stone, how did you get that one up there?
Yeah. They believe the find to be significant because they say it suggests the work could have been done more quickly, albeit still involving the heavy labor of a large number of people. The system we have discovered would allow more people to exert force at one time, so it means you would be able to exert more force and move the blocks more quickly, said Dr. Roland Inmark, a senior lecturer in Egyptology at the University of Liverpool and the co-director of the project that made the discovery. He told The Guardian that he and his colleagues, including his fellow director Dr. Yanis Gordon of the Institut François d'Archéologie Orientale, or IFAO, intended to publish their findings in a peer-reviewed journal in the near future. The find was made in late September, meaning that has not yet been possible. He said the alabaster quarry itself, as well as the inscriptions that they were there to study, have been known to Egyptologists for a long time, having first been found by Howard Carter, the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. The team's original focus was not on the ramp leading down into the quarry, but on properly documenting the inscriptions found there. But their attention was soon drawn to the former's construction and what it could tell them about how the pyramids were built. They said the inscriptions allowed them to date the ramp to around the time of the pharaoh Khufu, or Cheops, who built the Great Pyramid. While there is no proof of the method that was used to construct the monument, Enmark said it was reasonable to suggest it would have been if the technique was in use at Egypt at the time. So many problems here. Number one, they're assuming that they know when the pyramid was built, despite all the problems with the dating. Number two, no one knows who Khufu is or Cheops. He has multiple names because they're not really sure who he is, you know? And number three, I don't actually have a problem with the ramp theory. What I have a problem with is suggesting that the people that were using those ramps were building the pyramid. Like, what I think the most likely thing is all the evidence that they think they've found for all these massive workforces in and I've said this before on the podcast, that massive workforces in and around the Giza Plateau at the time they think the pyramid was built was a repair crew.
A reconstruction.
And a reconstruction. And they were the ones that did the cladding stones, possibly. They may have... Maybe they didn't do those either.
Maybe they were just the window washers, you know?
Yeah,
just up there
they were up there cleaning it.
With massive ramps and scaffolds cleaning it.
Right. And
because it's not going to stay. I mean, it's going to grow lichen and or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
depending on the weather.
Right.
It's going to get.
And if it was very old, it would definitely have been. They might have been replacing blocks and like we've talked about with the Giza Plateau. There's massive evidence of people coming in later and repairing stuff that was incredibly ancient.
Yeah.
So I think it's highly likely that the Khufu Cheops period, with all the workers and the ramps and the quarries, was not. And that was an alabaster quarry. There's no alabaster in the pyramid. So, but the idea of these people coming in and doing all this work is not, they weren't building the monument itself. I think that they were doing repair and possibly cladding or sheathing.
Yeah. And this is the other problem with the study is that they already know that the pyramid was built with ramps.
Right.
And so anything that they find that points to their conclusion.
Right. So they find a ramp in a quarry that's a quarry for alabaster, which has nothing to do with the pyramids. And they're like, well, this shows, their ramp technology.
Yeah. The other issue that I would bring up too on this subject is in modern times, if we're building a high-rise building, and we should probably talk to the stash about this, but
yeah,
when they're picking up these beams, these massive steel beams going up the high-rise building to put it up on the next floor up, they're not putting a winch or hitching the rope to the structure that they're building to pull that beam up. They have a separate machine that lifts it up there.
That's true, yeah.
You don't build the structure to be the thing that's picking, even though it's made to hold the beam up above it.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you get the first beam up there?
Right.
You still use the crane to get the first beam up there.
That's right.
And then you might as well continue using the crane to get the next beam up.
You're using a separate device or structure or object to pick up the stuff. You're not anchoring anything to the structure you're trying to build.
With a ramp, if you build the ramp, you have to use the ramp. You have to use the ramp to pull the object up. So whatever you're building the ramp out of has to be stronger and able to take whatever force. Like if it requires 5,000 guys to pull a block up the ramp needs to be able to both
hold the block
and the guys pushing against the ramp to pull the block up. And it's it's more likely that the ramp would come down because it's got the force of gravity on its side, then the block would go up.
That's right.
Right? Unless they built the ramp out of bigger blocks.
Right. In which case you have the
same problem. It's like, how do you build the ramp out of big blocks?
Diminishing returns.
That's right. So where did they hook onto to pull the first block into place?
Right.
The ground. That would work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But they would have to both build those blocks to support the static pressure of all the next blocks on top of them and their forces, plus the force of trying to pull the building apart away from the building itself to drag the next stone up there. It's just that's not.
Yep. I got right. What you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Like imagine, the Empire State Building or some massive thing where they've got these beams that they're cutting the beams out of a solid block of steel that's a quarter mile away.
Yeah.
So they're way up at the top of the Empire State Building, and what are they going to do? Hook ropes up to the top of the Empire State Building, start dragging that beam from a quarter of a mile away.
Well, let's just make an example that anyone can understand. You're standing there, and I'm like, hey, can you hold this box? So I pick up the box, and it's really hard for me, and I pick it up, and I'm like, I pick the box up, and I put it in your arms, okay? And now I've got another box. I'm like, I need you to hold this other box too. And I grab onto you. While you're holding the one box, I grab onto you with that box you're holding and then reach down to the other box and try to use you to pick up the box that's on the ground. And you're going to fall over and the box isn't going to go anywhere.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
And anybody that tried to do that, you'd be like, what are you doing? Just pick the box up and put it on top. Just stop trying to use me to pick up the box. Like, I'm standing here so that you can put the box in my arms. Don't try to, pull on me to pick the box up. Yeah. Because it's going to knock me down.
And, think about this, too. Imagine the pyramid, and you're almost at the top of the pyramid. So
and then you fall.
You have this ramp. Right, you've continued to build the ramp as you do continue making courses going up and up and up and up. Now you're almost at the top. So you've got the ramp's getting steeper, or longer.
Right,
it has to be one or the other.
Yeah,
right,
yes.
Or both.
Yeah.
So you've got this steep and long ramp, and you're almost at the very top, and you put however many guys it takes in front of the block to pull it, and behind it pushing it. Once you get really close to the top, where do all the guys go that are pulling it?
Yeah.
To do that last bit.
Right.
Do they just hang off the other side? Or do they have ramps on two sides?
Yeah, you got to have a ramp on the other side too. And then you end up with ramps that cover more surface area than the pyramid.
The actual pyramid.
Yeah.
Where did all that go?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yep. So, as an aside, I just want to say this. This is kind of a personal note, but I bought a new desk today. Right?
Okay.
I have this really crappy old corner desk that I have, you guys have heard the story where I live in the tower with the cat, right? And I have the entrance to the tower, the only entrance. And then I have this little crappy corner desk, and I have this massive computer with all these monitors set up on this corner desk, and everything's kind of wobbly and iffy because, my biggest monitor is actually balanced on top of one of my speakers because I don't have any room for it on the desk. So I was tired of that, and I went and bought a new desk. And there's just something about buying a badass desk. I can't wait to take all that whole setup down, just tear everything apart, clean out the entire corner, and set up this badass brand new desk. And I'm gonna feel like it's and then I'll be sitting there in a dark and stormy night, looking up stuff for this podcast, and it's gonna be awesome. I just feel incredibly empowered by this new desk that I got. I just want to say,
yeah, man, it's great.
Cool story, bro. All right, we don't know how long we've been going. What's the time here? What do we got? All right, we got 2 minutes. So we had we talked about procession last week a lot, and did we have a few things that we wanted to add to that? Yeah, some corrections we wanted to make.
I did. I'll have to think about it. I didn't have it
keyed up in your brain.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we also have some listener emails coming up, but I don't want to read those with only 2 minutes left to go. So
yeah, I'll think about it in the break.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and take the break, and we'll come back and do a little extra on the other side.
Snake break.
Yep. Take a snake break.
Welcome back to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, episode 73, where we espouse slithering snippets of syllabic fork-tongued sibilance. Something or other. So got to work on my alliteration a bit. So,
Yeah, it was slightly sloppy.
Slightly sloppy. Sorry about that. I listened to episode 72 twice, and that's only happened with one other episode, which was the
62.
Oh, was it 62? Yeah, it was Clint Beckham.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, the main reason was that I'm curious, did we do a good job explaining precession? Because we have tried it before on the podcast. Hell no. So I'm really curious from you listeners if you were able to actually, did you get it? If you hadn't already understood it, did you understand it after we explained it again? And I would like to know what helped you to understand it, if it did, or if it didn't, just say nope. You know what I mean?
Nope.
But in that, I was just trying to imagine myself just being somebody who'd never heard of it and listening to our explanations of it, because it took me a long time to figure out how this thing works. And, through graphic representation and people describing it and all kinds of things like that. And then really just looking at the sky and trying to work my brain around how this thing is actually working. So I'm very curious if that helped anybody at all, or if not. And one of the other things I thought was that it is, to me, a complex idea, and I realized that in order to explain it well, you have to, especially with just spoken word and without graphics, it has to be done very precisely with the language, right? And I feel like there were certain areas where we were talking about it that we just left out simple things that could have really helped in the description to complete, the description. And one of the ideas that I thought of that we didn't actually talk about was this, that I would like to explain now, is that the idea of this wobble of the axis. When I first was trying to learn about precession, I was trying to figure out, how does this wobble of the axis actually result in the whole sky rolling over backwards compared to what it would normally roll over in the period of a day. And so what I wanted to describe here is that if you were to, say, stop all of the other motions of the Earth around the sun, the day cycle, whatever, and you were just to wobble that axle 360 degrees in this supposed wobble that it has, and you were looking at the sky, say, at the sun or at the night sky when it happened, what you would actually see is all the stars sort of trailing in a small circle in front of you. Like if you just held your hand out and just rotated in a circle like around a clock.
Yeah, the North Pole would basically point at that would kind of rotate.
It would just roll all the way around back to the North Star and into a circle that you could see the full circle that the North Star made in the sky.
Right, exactly.
It would not roll all the way over the other side of the planet and then come back up to where it was.
No, yeah.
The reason it does that is because of its combination with all of the other cycles, and mainly the cycle of the revolution around the sun.
Yeah.
So that if you shifted that axis a quarter turn, the Earth would have to move a quarter turn around the sun in the opposite direction
to be in the same season.
So if you look at the sun, to be in the same season, exactly. So if you're in the spring, and it's the first day of spring, and then you stopped all of the motions, and then you rotated that axis a quarter turn, you would be in the solstice.
Right.
So you would have to move the Earth the opposite direction that it normally goes around the sun, a quarter turn, to get it back to the spring season.
Right.
That is why when you then look at the night sky, when the Earth is when your position on the Earth is facing away from the sun, you see a different set of stars.
Yeah.
So that I thought was very important to understanding why this rollover happens.
Yeah, that's a really good way to illustrate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot more clear. The mechanism is what you're talking about.
That's what I mean. Yeah, because that's what took me so long. I'm like, why? How does this almost? It's not really a turning of the Earth.
The whole thing doesn't turn. Yeah, but what makes the background stars move around is because the period where the spring happens, due to that turn, moves around the orbit of the sun.
Around the orbit of the sun in the reverse direction of our normal orbit.
Which means when you're looking at dawn, so just before the sun rises, you're basically looking just past the sun at the background stars. As the precessional wobble moves a quarter turn, you have to move the entire Earth around a quarter turn in its orbit backwards, and so you're looking at a totally different set of stars behind the sun.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it.
So anyway, any feedback on precession from any of you listeners would be great. Let us know. Brothers of the Serpent.
And we also
gmail.com or Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter. At Snurk Bros. Snake Bros with no vowels.
Right. He took the vowels out so that we had 3 extra characters in our tweets. Because that's extremely important when you're trying to describe precession with 144 characters.
That's right. Or 160 or however many Twitter he uses. Yeah. Something like that.
I mean, that'll just give you a little bit of punctuation that can totally make it understandable.
3 exclamation points on there to make sure.
Yeah, 1 exclamation point, 1 number 1, and then 1 exclamation point.
That's right. Exclamation point 1, exclamation point. Not another, because you weren't making a correction, but a correction I need to make from the last show is I said it was Boyle's law that was the mathematical progression of the planets away from the sun. It's Bode's law. So that was, I got 1 letter wrong. Sorry about that. Or no, wait, 2. There was an extra letter. And yeah. Anyway, it's Bode's law.
Stop while you're
So yeah, I shouldn't have called it out without. I knew I wasn't sure what it was, and I shouldn't have said it, but I did. And so it was Bode's.
Basically,
Bode's law.
it's the Watcher's fault.
That's right. The Watcher's supposed to correct us on that shit, and he didn't.
He apologized already, so we let him keep his job.
Way to not watch, Watcher. Good looking out, Watcher. I think. All right. So, speaking of the Watcher, I just want to say that the Watcher's dad is like, he sends us an email for every show. And I think that's fantastic. It's great feedback. Every show we get an email from him, episode 71, and then everything that he thinks we got wrong. And it's awesome. So
now we know where the Watcher gets.
That's right. So this is from 71 from Sydney, England. He says, 1, at about the 20-minute mark, you started a discussion about what I've been trying to explain to you several times about the fact that we are in a world of nothing but data. I'm not talking about ones and zeros, but that it's all written in a quantum program in a quantum computer, just like you are contemplating. You are confused about data and action and perception of data and action. Our soul observing is what creates time, just as observing the simultaneous 0 and 1 turns it into either the 1 or the 0, which is why entanglement can be. There is no time anywhere. Simultaneous action despite distance is because distance is an aspect of time. Ergo, there is no real distance either. The Big Bang was probably just the initial instruction of the early computer program. 2. Much, if not all, of British spelling from Old English.
I have some things to say about that.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's go ahead and talk about that. This is itemized.
I have a problem with your idea of contemplating collapses the quantum state.
Yeah.
That's not what the tests and the experiments have shown. In other words, I'm not saying that it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that what the experiments have shown is that any interaction collapses the quantum state.
Right.
So that doesn't mean that it's necessarily evidence that consciousness collapses it.
Right.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but you can't just, if you're going to blaze us for whatever, you can't just outright claim that that's what that means. So right now they're working on quantum computing, and the problem is that sending the qubit over a whatever
a network
that it's how far away it gets increases the probability that it's going to interact.
Yeah,
and the moment it interacts, it collapses, and it can interact with anything.
Yeah.
So as long as we've talked about, most of the universe is actually empty space. When you look at the size of these atoms and the distances between the quote unquote particles and everything is just vast areas of empty space.
Right.
So these quantum particles can most of the time
not interact.
Right. Well, most of the time. That's a really bad way to say it, but
they can
go distances,
without
pretty decent amount of distances, especially when you consider that distance as a ratio to their size. They can go extreme distances without interacting, but eventually, the farther they go, the higher the probability is that they will interact.
Right.
So that's my only. But I'm not convinced that you cannot cause an interaction with a quantum particle just by thinking about it. I'm not convinced that it doesn't happen either.
Right.
We just don't know. And it's very difficult to create an experiment that proves that can suggest that maybe it does happen. Like putting your mind in the path of a laser.
I'll just say that the main thing that I totally agree with him on is this one part. It's just 3 words. You are confused.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree with
right
that part.
That. But I also love the idea of time being space and space. It's like what did he say about that? There is no time. It's just this.
Yeah,
it's all space.
Our soul observing is what creates time. Just as observing the simultaneous 1 0 turns it into either the 0 or the 1, which is why entanglement can be there is no time anywhere. Simultaneous action despite distances because distance is an aspect of time.
I like that.
Yeah,
because I've always thought of time as just like you would take the dimensions 1, 2, 3, 4. Like if time was the 4th dimension, it's just another place for space to be, right? And like that's kind of the way I look at it.
We've had these like late night discussions about the possibility of like if you could actually stop moving in the other 3 dimensions, would you also stop moving in time?
Yeah,
we've had these discussions.
Yes,
like, yeah.
so
like motion actually implies because space and time are together in the standard model that motion in space implies motion in time. So that ergo implies maybe that if you could stop moving in space, you would also stop moving in time.
Or if you could actually move backward in space, you would move backward in time.
Yeah.
Like we can't do that because we don't know what our actual trajectory or our motion is.
In time. Yeah.
In space.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't know which direction we're actually going relative to a stationary point in the universe.
Right.
If we did, then it's possible to say that we could create a machine that's just moved a particle or moved anything right back to a space that it actually occupied previous in time.
Yeah.
Right.
And it would actually go back
in time.
actually
go back in time.
Yeah.
Like that's just an idea. I don't know. I think that's cool. It's a cool thing to just blow your mind thinking about. Oh yeah, that's just my mind exploding. Don't mind me.
Yeah. Okay, so at number 2, he says much, if not all, of British spelling from Old English uses AE for the long A sound and EA for the long E sound. I'm not sure what he's responding to there, but thanks for that information.
Hair digger. Like I think you might have been talking about the Fae.
Oh yeah, the Fae. This is the Fae. This is episode 50 of 71. Yeah. Nowadays, every generation seems to wail about the losses in the world since their childhood. Old culture is not as old as it was. That's interesting. That's right. Yeah, I think, again, you're responding to like people wailing about the losses of the Fae mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not supernatural, just not understood. I agree with that 100%.
Yep.
Okay, so the next response he had was for 72. First he says, what a world. I had computer stops for 3 weeks. I get my computer cleaned up and sped up, and then yours starts to break down. See, it's a zero-sum game. One computer gets fixed, another one goes haywire. Thanks, bro, for fixing your computer and making ours go bad. 2. That's a typical Skirp Derp idea about the booms. I've been following those and animal mutilations through Linda Moulton Howe for years. She has hundreds of detailed reports in her website's archives. So yeah, I'm not sure which Skirp Derp idea you're talking about with the booms, unless you're talking about the Cosmic Funk, which I don't think is a real Skirp Derp. But
it's Cosmic Funk.
I totally agree that like all this atmospheric refraction is a pretty classic Skirp Derp of something they're trying to.
Yeah, that must be what he's talking about.
Yeah.
The guy's talking about that.
Yeah,
sound can travel through these little sound holes, sound worms.
I think if they're talking about atmospheric refraction,
yeah,
right, about how like you can be right in front of a battlefield and there's all these light flashes from explosions, but you don't hear it. But somebody over there, hundreds of miles away, does hear all the booms, and they're like, oh, that's because it's bouncing off of a refraction in the atmosphere, and Manser, and it's just but you don't actually know that. So I think he's totally right. I think that and it isn't just booms. Again, you have the trumpets, the horn sounds, the crazy screeching noises, the other very odd vibrations that come out of the sky, and it's not just booming sounds. And then, of course, the Seneca guns, which are on the East Coast, have been heard for hundreds of years, long before we had anything like, large. I mean, they had cannon, but that's why they called them the Seneca guns, because they sounded like multiple cannons going off in the bay when there were no cannons in the bay. And there's no other explanation for it, because we don't have artillery and we didn't have flyovers that could be breaking the sound barrier, which is what they usually blame it on today. So I agree with you, script derps on that. 3, your sensation of the cat is probably early neuropathy related to your old accident as residual injury. I've had it slowly developing due to diabetes and spinal injury for years. It's really freaky when it's under the covers in the bed. I bet. Yeah, like, who's touching me? What the actual F is going on? Yeah, I don't know if that's what it is, because there's multiple reasons for it. Brett and I talked about this, and maybe he can just come on and say what he said. Brett, when you pop on and talk about neuropathy? You there, buddy? Is he there?
I don't know.
Maybe he's not there. I'm not going to get backed up for the watcher.
Well, damn.
No, I was
there
outside.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Wow, you came in through the airlock pretty quick.
Yeah, you were on an EVA and you just came right in.
Yeah. Headset. It's a portal. Anyway, yeah. The only issue that I really have with the potential neuropathy explanation is that typical neuropathy from a disease process starts distally, as far away as you can get. So like fingertips, toes, and works its way back. It wouldn't really start in the shins. And if it was neuropathy from your spinal
injury
trauma, it would start at the spine and work its way out towards the toes. Like you'd have shooting pains starting from your back out down your legs, and then tingle, and then it would go numb. But that still wouldn't start in your shins,
right?
Like
or on the sides of my calves.
It doesn't start in the middle,
right? On the sides of my calves where the cat rubs. Yeah,
right. So that would be my only issue with that.
And also, like the thing is like I only experience it when I'm sitting there in the computer chair where the cat rubs on me just like that. I don't experience it when I'm doing anything else or laying in bed or anything like that. So, and it's a very specific sensation,
I'm just going to go with Brenner as like Electric Universe, bro.
It's Electric Universe, man. Yeah. It explains everything.
The cat creates a lot of static.
All right. And here he's defending you. 5. Water has 3 states, so it doesn't qualify as an example of repetitive phrase to say liquid water.
Thank you. 'Cause I do that a lot. But you really have to, when you're talking physics, you gotta let people know.
We're talking about liquid water here, buddy.
Yeah, it's liquid water, not solid water.
6. By the way, thanks for introducing me to Manly P. Hall. He is incredible. Yeah.
Agreed.
Dude, totally agree. Manly P. Hall is awesome. 7. There have been 72 presidents, but only 45 of them have existed yet. Whoa. Whoa. Let's see. Okay, and this is the last one I'm going to read here is the one for another one for Kyle. Listening as closely as I can, it seems to me that you have inadvertently written a jazz symphony. I hear essentially the same melody and many variations running through most of the music you play on the show. If you were to line them up properly, you would probably have a symphony.
Oh, that's cool.
So was that a compliment, or was he basically saying that all your music is repetitive and sounds the same?
Yeah, so I went through this phase of techno making where all of my main melody lines were single key piano hits. Like,
yeah. That's right.
It's like, I don't know. Yeah, they're pretty much all the same song, because I was actually learning. I used that process to learn the program Logic.
Yeah.
When I got it originally, it was Logic 7, and whenever I would travel, me and Russ would go on road trips. I would bring my laptop and just start making techno. And so, slowly as I make the techno, I learn how to run this program and how to do all these things, which I use in my live music recording. So the more live music I do, it's a lot more different than my very limited techno abilities.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jazz Symphony sounds great.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the last one I'm going to read from him. This is his response to...
You should check out $50 Dynasty, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
my live band.
Yep.
Just go on whatever. You can get it anywhere.
Just look it up.
I think you can stream it.
Yeah, it's out there, man. Just look it up.
Just check it out.
Okay, so he says a virus enters a cell based on the protein code. Think about pollen blowing randomly in the wind and landing on a plant. Certain chemicals automatically attract one another. There's no consciousness involved. So I think on that one, he's given me crap specifically for saying that I think that some of the stuff that viruses do imply that consciousness is fundamental because it's, and once again, I bring the Watcher on to help me out on this because I talked to him extensively about this after I got this email.
So, yeah.
Uh-oh.
All right, I'll take over.
Internet problems here, folks. We just lost the Watcher right when he was about to defend me.
So it is still possible that pollen is conscious.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really understand consciousness. It's possible that viruses have some form of consciousness we don't understand because we don't understand consciousness.
Yeah.
And consciousness may govern the interactions of quantum particles. Consciousness may govern the interactions. They may govern the laws of physics.
Yes.
We don't really know because we don't really understand consciousness. So to outright say they're not conscious, I disagree with. I'm not saying they are.
We don't know. I was saying that I thought that it might be evidence for consciousness being fundamental, but I'm not making a declaration that they are conscious. It just seems like, and like the fact that viruses are in that sort of, as a medical professional, you will understand this, like that viruses are in that gray area of are they alive or not. And like I think that they're there because there's problems with one of the sort of arbitrary requirements for something being alive or being a life form is that it can replicate itself. Now, a virus can't without help. It has to use something else to replicate it. It has to use the cell to replicate itself. But it's still the question is up in the air of whether or not it's alive or not because it acts like a life form. It has goals, and it interacts in certain ways with certain things, and it can't all be chalked up to chemical attractions because, there are plenty of other things that have the same sort of chemical attractions that it doesn't bond onto and start injecting RNA into. So I think that I don't know if we're going to get the Watcher back for this, but basically we had a long conversation about it, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not saying that I'm right. Right. I'm just telling you that I don't know. And this show is about questioning things. And we like to I kind of like to be familiar with the standard model before I start looking for other answers. And I'm roughly familiar with the standard model on the idea of viruses. And it doesn't seem to hold up for me on how they're able to just, I don't see a random ability to just connect to cells when they're so minuscule compared to the cells. And there's so much other stuff in the area where they are that have the same chemical signatures as the cells themselves. So I think that, the consciousness consciousness is a possible explanation, but it isn't necessarily the answer. All
right. I think we might've got the Watcher back.
Did we get the Watcher back?
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think that I often lean towards the idea that there is actually, it doesn't even matter if consciousness is part of it. There is a physical explanation for what's going on. Like, I think that somewhere we can discover what is happening with the physics. Now, I don't know if obviously consciousness has a physical effect because we are living proof of that. Like, we are conscious and we have physical bodies, and our consciousness can direct our physical bodies.
Yeah.
So we know that there are physical principles involved in this connection that consciousness has with the physical realm. So I like to pursue like the physical explanations for things, and like molecular adhesion or whatever, all of that stuff is I don't have a problem with that, because the other thing I thought of was that idea, or that story that I read where it was like however many billions of freaking viruses are landing on every square meter of the earth like every single day. Yeah. So there's so many of them that chance, that probability would say that yes, they're gonna find the right spot to land on, and they're gonna do their deal. Yeah. And I also think that resonance may have a lot to do with it. Like their virus, and it's this DNA chain that we think of as these little, this double helix. It's really it's all about geometry, and geometry is all about resonance, or vice versa. Yeah. Every DNA is going to have resonant qualities. So every virus that it has, whatever it's made up of, has certain resonant qualities. Right. So it may not stick to things that it doesn't work with, because that is the way it's designed somehow. Yeah. Or maybe I shouldn't use the designed word. That's the way it is. It is. Yeah. Right. And then if it has a specific type of DNA or whatever that it's using to change or alternate, like this is a lot of those mechanisms can be explained through resonance. Yeah. So, all right, we got the Watcher back, so let's let him come back on and give it another shot. You there, buddy? You still there? Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah, I think I got 2 phone calls. That's probably why. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, so we lost you right at the beginning. So go ahead and start over. And they were Ty. Oh, it's so. Yeah, I knew it. I blame Ty, dude. It's always Ty. And the funny thing is that it's like he knows that we're recording. What the hell? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there's 2 possible ways of looking at the mechanism of a virus. One being that you get bombarded with a ton of them. So eventually one of them, like my dad was saying in that email, pollen in the wind, something's going to hit what it's supposed to. I mean, that's possible. But isn't there the question of why they don't bond to stuff that they're not supposed to bond to, even though they have the same chemical signatures? Weren't you talking about that? Yeah, that's my issue with that type of model, is that the cell has a lipid bilayer, and that's what it attaches to. So it's a fat. And you've got high density lipids, low density lipids. That's what cholesterol is, and it's all free floating in your blood. So you would essentially have viruses attaching to that and, injecting them with the DNA or RNA. And that's, as far as I know, something that's never been recorded, observed, or reported. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like if this thing that you're saying that's attached to the cell, that's the thing that the virus attaches to. But there's also free floating ones. Like maybe when it's attached to the cell, it's resonant frequency, or its resonance is now combined with the cell, which is what gives it the properties that the virus is able to combine with. That definitely could be. That's your resonance explanation. His dad is talking about chemical attraction, which is totally different. Right. Well, I think chemical attraction is resonance. Like, explanation is that in and of itself implies some type of decision. Yeah, that was my other thing, is that I don't think chemistry really goes far enough. Right. Like chemistry was developed first, and then physicists came along and started figuring shit out, answering everything. And so they started looking at what chemists were saying, and they're like, well, how do these guys know? Like they're not really studying the same exact thing. So the physicists go along and try to check all of the chemists' work, and they find out, well, the chemists do know what they're talking about, but they don't actually know what was causing it, but they had correctly identified all of these relationships. Yeah. Right. But chemistry doesn't really go far enough to actually explain the mechanism. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, and there's actually an entire field of chemistry which is called physical chemistry, which goes into that specifically. To me, when I look at it, what I see is a nanomachine is a really good analog to think of a virus. Yeah. And when I look at it that way, whatever intelligence or consciousness may appear to be in the virus itself would
be something that it's imbued with from a design standpoint, like a programmer or a creator.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can say, in general, you know, I'm 34 now, and for the first 20 years of my life, my dad was always wrong. As I've gotten older, he's gotten some things right. But
yeah.
I mean, so take that for what, you know, what you will.
Basically, Mr. England, what we want to say is thank you for all the emails. And you're totally wrong. We love your emails and how amazingly wrong you are. Because this show is about getting almost everything wrong all the time. And you fit right in, buddy. So keep on sending
us those emails.
Those emails about being wrong. And telling us that we're wrong and even being wrong in your explanations about how we're wrong. It's awesome. Because we are wrong. And so are you. So thank you very much. And okay, before we take a break, you're asking what I was laughing at. And I thought of that meme, you know, where like everything is just the supplied whatever, right? And there's the part where it's like, well, you know, the chemists are just like, well, biology is just applied chemistry. And the physicists are like, well, chemistry is just applied physics, you know. And then the mathematician's like way over here on the far side. And he's like, what are you guys doing way over there? You know, like the whole, what's true science? And it's like a graph. It starts out with philosophy and gets all the way to physics. And it's like physics, you know, chemistry is just applied physics.
I was getting worried. I thought I was.
No, that's why I started cracking up, because you were basically saying that. Well, chemistry is just applied physics. And the physicists saw that the chemists didn't go far enough. And the mathematician's way over there going, what are you guys doing way over there?
I don't mean to slam chemistry. I think it's great. That was not what I was intending to do. So
yeah, and like Brett said, physical chemistry is like where they try to merge the two, and it's very, very awesome.
It's basically all waves.
Yeah,
that's basically what I think.
And does anyone understand it?
Hell no, to the no, 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 yeah, to the no, hell to the no, to the no, no, no.
And that's what I have to say about that. Taking a break. We'll be right back.